Ladies and gentlemen, we are still glued to this chair. And today, we're going to be finishing off our reading of what book are we reading? Our series reading of The Wolf Queen. We have volumes 6. God, that book being a different book is really throwing me off. But we have volumes 6, 7, and 8 to read. In the previous video, we had read volumes 3, 4, 5, and in, I think, the video before that, we read volumes 1 and 2. So, without further ado, here we go. Let's get right into it. The Wolf Queen, Book 6, by the same dude as before, from the pen of Inzilicus, 2nd century sage. 3rd era, 120. The 15-year-old Empress Kintera Septim II, daughter of Antiochus, was coronated on the 3rd day of First Seed. Her uncles Magnus, king of Lilmoth, and Sepphoris, king of Galain, were in attendance, but her aunt Potema, the Wolf Queen of Solitude, had been banished from the court. Once back in her kingdom, Queen Potema began assembling the rebellion, which was to be known as the War of the Red Diamond. All the allies she had made over the years of disgruntled kings and nobles joined forces with her against the new empress, as well as some key members of the Knights of the Nine, oddly enough. The first early strikes against the Empire were entirely successful. Throughout Skyrim and northern High Rock, the Imperial army found themselves under attack. Potema and her forces washed over Tamriel like a plague, inciting riots and insurrections everywhere they touched. In the autumn of the year, the loyal Duke of Glenpoint on the coast of High Rock sent an urgent request for reinforcements from the Imperial army, and Kintera, to inspire the resistance to the Wolf Queen, led the army herself. Well, goddamn. 3rd era, 121. We don't know where they are, said the Duke, deeply embarrassed. I've sent scouts out all over the countryside. I can only assume that they've retreated up north upon hearing of your army's arrival. I hate to say it, but I was hoping for a battle, said Kintera. I'd like to put my aunt's head on a spike and parade it around the Empire. Her son Uriel and his army are right on the border to the Imperial province, mocking me. How are they able to be so successful? Are they just that good in battle, or do my subjects truly hate me? She was tired after many months of struggling through the mud of autumn and winter, crossing the Dragon Tail Mountains. Her army nearly marched into an ambush. A blizzard snap in the normally temperate barony of Dwinham was so unexpected and severe that it must certainly have been cast by one of Potema's wizard allies. Everywhere she turned, she felt her aunt's touch, and now her chance of facing the Wolf Queen at last had been thwarted. It was almost too much to bear. It is fear, pure and simple, said the Duke. That is her greatest weapon. I need to ask, said Kintera, hoping that by sheer will she could keep her voice from revealing any of the fear the Duke spoke of. You've seen the army. Is it true that she has summoned a force of undead warriors to do her bidding? No, as a matter of fact, it's not true, but she certainly fosters that rumor. Her army attacks at night, partly for strategic reasons, and partly to advance fears like that. She has, so far as I know, no supernatural aid other than the standing battle mages and night blades of any modern army. Always at night, said Kintera thoughtfully. I suppose that's to disguise their numbers, and to move her troops into position before we're aware of them, added the Duke. She's the master of the sneak attack. When you hear a march to the east, you can be certain she's already on top of you from the south. But listen, we'll discuss this all tomorrow morning. Let's just have a nice sleep. I've prepared the castle's best rooms for you and your men. Kintera sat in her tower suite, and by the light of the moon and a single tallow candle, she penned a letter to her husband-to-be, Lord Medellus, back in the Imperial City. She hoped to be married to him in the summer at the Blue Palace her grandmother Quintilla had loved so much, but the war may not permit it. As she wrote, she gazed out the window at the courtyard below and the haunted, leafless trees of winter. 2 of her guards stood on the battlements, several feet away from one another, just like Medellus and Kintera, she thought, and proceeded to expound on the metaphor in her letter. A knock on the door interrupted her poetry. "A letter, your majesty, from Lord Medellus." "Wow, great timing," said the young courier, handing the note to her. It was short, and she read it quickly before the courier had a chance to retire. "I'm confused by something. When did he write this?" "1 week ago," said the courier. "He said it was urgent that I make it here as quickly as possible while he mobilized the army. I imagine they've left the city already." Quintera dismissed the courier. Medellus said that he had received a letter from her, urgently calling for reinforcements to the battle at Glenpoint. But there was no battle at Glenpoint, and she had only just arrived today. Then who wrote the letter in her handwriting? And why would they want Medellus to bring a second army out of the Imperial City into High Rock? I wonder who could have forged a letter like that. Feeling a chill from the night air at the window, Quintera went to shut the latch. The 2 guards on the battlements were gone. She leaned over at the sound of a muffled struggle behind one of the barren trees and did not hear the door open. When she turned, she saw Queen Potema and Menton? Who the fuck is that? Duke of Glenpoint in the room with the host of guards. "You move quietly, Aunt," she said after a moment's pause. She turned to the Duke. "What turns you against your loyalty to the Empire? Fear?" "And gold," said the Duke simply. "What happened to my army?" said Quintera, trying to look Potema steadily in the face. "Is the battle over so soon?" "All your men are dead," smiled Potema. "But there was no battle here, merely quiet and efficient assassination. There will be battles ahead, against Medellus and the Dragon Tail Mountains, and against the remnants of the Imperial army in the city. I'll send you regular updates on the progress of the war." "So I am to be kept here as your hostage?" asked Quintera flatly, suddenly aware of the solidity of the stones in the great height of her tower room. "Damn you, look at me! I am your empress." I don't know about that one, Chief. That may not be the case. Think of it this way. I'm taking you from being a fifth-rate ruler to a first-rate martyr, said Potema with a wink. But I understand if you don't want to thank me for that. Potema embracing her badass side. Oh boy. Here we go. Volume 7. The Wolf Queen, Book 7, by William Joth. From the pen of Inzelicus, 2nd century sage. 3rd era, 125. The exact date of the Empress Quintera Septim II's execution, goddamn, it was a child, in the tower at Glenpoint Castle is open to some speculation. Some believe she was slain shortly after her imprisonment in the 121st year, while others maintain that she was likely kept alive as a hostage until shortly before her uncle Sepphoris, King of Ghislaine, reconquered western High Rock in the summer of the 125th year. The certainty of Quintera's demise rallied many against the Wolf Queen Potema and her son, who had been crowned Emperor Uriel Septim III 4 years previously when he invaded the under-guarded imperial city. Sepphoris concentrated his army on the war in High Rock, while his brother Magnus, King of Lilmoth, brought his Argonian tribes through loyal Morrowind and into Skyrim to fight in Potema's home province. The reptilian troops fought well in the summer month, but during the winter they retired south to regroup and attack again when the weather was warm. At this stalemate, the war lasted out 2 more years. Alas, in the 125th year, Magnus's wife Helena gave birth to their first child, a boy who they named Pelagius, after the emperor who fathered Magnus, Sepphoris, the late emperor Antiochus, and the dread Wolf Queen of Solitude. 3rd era, 127. Potema sat on soft silk cushions in the warm grass in front of her tent and watched the sun rise over the dark woods on the other side of the meadow. It was a peculiarly vibrant morning, typical of Skyrim summertide. The high chirrup of insects buzzed all around her, and the sky surged with thousands of bellowing birds, rolling over one another and forming a multitude of patterns. Nature was unaware of the war coming to Falcon Star, she surmised. "Your Highness, a message from the army in Hammerfell," said one of her maids, bringing in a courier. He was breathing hard, stained with sweat and mud, evidence of a long, fast ride over many, many miles. "My queen," said the courier, looking to the ground, "I bring grave news of your son, the Emperor. He met your brother King Sepphoris' army in Hammerfell in the countryside of Ichadag, and there did battle. You would be proud, for he fought well, but in the end the Imperial army was defeated, and your son, our Emperor, was captured. King Sepphoris is bringing him to Ghislaine. Patema listened to the news, scowling. "That clumsy fool," she said at last. Patema stood and strolled into camp, where the men were arming themselves, preparing for battle. Long ago, the soldiers understood that their lady did not stand on ceremony, and she would prefer that they work rather than salute her. Lord Vokin was ahead of her, already meeting with the commander of the battle mages, discussing last-minute strategy. "My queen," said the courier, who had been following her, "what are you going to do?" "I'm going to win this battle with Magnus, despite his superior position holding the ruins of Cogmenthus Castle," said Patema. Cogmenthus, who? "And then, when I know what Sepphoris means to do with the Emperor, I'll respond accordingly. If there's a ransom to be paid, I'll pay it. If there's a prison exchange needed, so be it. Now please, bathe yourself and rest, and try not to get in the way of the war." "It's not an ideal scenario," said Lord Vokin when Patema had entered the commander's tent. "If we attack the castle from the west, we'll be running directly into the fire from their mages and archers. If we come from the east, we'll be going through swamps, and the Argonians do better in that type of environment than we do. A lot better." "What about the north and south? Just hills, correct?" "Very steep hills, your highness," said the commander. "We should post bowmen there, but we'll be too vulnerable putting out the majority of our force." "So it's the swamp," said Patema, and added, pragmatically, "unless we withdraw and wait for them to come out before fighting." "If we wait, Sepphoris will have his army here from High Rock, and we'll be trapped between the two of them," said Lord Vokin. "Not a preferable situation." "I'll talk to the troops," said the commander. "Try to prepare them for the swamp attack." "No," said Patema. "I'll speak to them." In full battle gear, the soldiers gathered in the center of camp. They were a motley collection of men and women, Cyrodiils, Nords, Bretons, and Dunmer, young bloods and old veterans, the sons and daughters of Skyrim, sons and daughters of nobles, shopkeepers, serfs, priests, prostitutes, farmers, academics, adventurers, and all of them under the banner of the Red Diamond, the symbol of the imperial family of Tamriel. "My children," Patema said, her voice ringing out, hanging in the still morning mist. "We have fought in many battles together, over mountain tops and beach heads, through forests and deserts. I have seen great acts of valor from each one of you, which does my heart proud. I have also seen dirty fighting, backstabbing, cruel and wanton feasts of savagery, which pleases me equally well. For you are all warriors." Warming to her theme, Patema walked the line from soldier to soldier, looking each one in the eye. "War is in your blood, in your brain, in your muscles, in everything you think, in everything you do. When this war is over, when the forces are vanquished that seek to deny the throne to the true emperor, Uriel Septim III, you may cease to be warriors. You may choose to return to your lives before the war, to your farms and your cities, and show off your scars and tell tales of your deeds, of the deeds you did this day to your wandering neighbors. But on this day, make no mistakes, you are warriors. You are war." What a fucking... That's a fucking depressing-ass thing to think about, huh? At least I would think that's pretty depressing. Maybe not to a medieval warrior. She could see her words were working. All around her, bloodshot eyes were focusing on the slaughter to come, arms tensing around weapons. She continued in her loudest cry, "And you will move through the swamplands like an unstoppable power from the blackest part of Oblivion, and you will rip the scales... Oh, come on. You will rip the scales from the reptilian things... I mean, they're Argonians. Give them some respect. In Cogmenthus Castle. You are warriors, and you need not only fight, you must win. You must win." The soldiers roared in response, shocking the birds from the trees all around the camp. From a vantage point on the hills to the south, Patema and Lord Vokin had excellent views of the battle as it raged. Can't even fight with them, God. Ugh. It looked like two swarms of two colors of insect moving back and forth over a clump of dirt, which was the castle ruins. Occasionally, a burst of flame or a cloud of acid from one of the mages would flicker over the battle, arresting their attention. But hour after hour, the fighting seemed like nothing but chaos. "A rider approaches," said Lord Vokin, breaking the silence. A young Redguard woman was wearing the crest of Ghislaine, but carried a white flag. Patema allowed her to approach, like the courier from the morning, The rider was well travel-worn. "Your Highness," she said, out of breath, "I have been sent from your brother, my lord King Sepphoris, to bring you dire news. Your son Uriel was captured in Ichibag on the fields in battle, and from there transported to Ghislaine." "I know all this," said Potema scornfully. "I have couriers of my own. You can tell your master that after I've won this battle, I'll pay whatever ransom or exchange. Your Highness, an angry crowd met the caravan your son was in before it made it to Ghislaine," the rider said quickly. "Your son is dead. He had been burned to death within his carriage. He is dead." Well, goddamn, that fucking blows. Potema turned from the young woman and looked down at the battle. Her soldiers were going to win. Magnus's army was in retreat. "One other item of news, Your Highness," said the rider. "King Sepphoris is being proclaimed emperor." Potema did not look at the woman. Her army was celebrating their victory. Damn, that's pretty fucking rough. I can't even lie. Burnt in the fucking carriage. Gosh darn. Well, here comes the last book. How is the Wolf Queen going to react? The Wolf Queen, Book 8 by Wayne Joff. From the pen of Indilicus, 2nd century sage. 3rd era, 127. Following the Battle of Ichibag, the Emperor Uriel Septim III was captured, and before he was able to be brought to his uncle's castle in the Hammerfell Kingdom of Ghislaine, he met his death at the hands of an angry mob. This uncle, Sepphoris, was thereafter proclaimed emperor and rode to the imperial city. The troops formerly loyal to the Emperor Uriel and his mother, the Wolf Queen Potema, pledged themselves to the new emperor. In return for their support, the nobility of Skyrim, High Rock, Hammerfell, and Somerset Isle, Valenwood, Blackmarsh, and Morrowind demanded and received a new level of autonomy and independence from the Empire. The War of the Red Diamond was at an end. Man, sometimes in order to end war, all you gotta do is just fucking burn essentially a child in their fucking, in a cage. Oh, that's pretty fucking bad. Potema continued to fight a losing battle, her area of influence dwindling and dwindling, until only her Kingdom of Solitude remained in her power. She summoned Daedra to fight for her, had her necromancers resurrect her fallen enemies as undead warriors, and mounted attack after attack on the forces of her brothers. The Emperor Sepphoris Septim I and King Magnus of Lilmoth, her allies, began leaving her as her madness grew, and her only companions were the zombies and skeletons she had amassed over the years. The Kingdom of Solitude became a land of death. Stories of the ancient Wolf Queen being waited on by rotting skeletal chambermaids and holding war plans with vampiric generals terrified her subjects. 3rd era, 137. Magnus opened up the small window in her room. For the first time in weeks, he heard the sounds of a city. Carts squeaking, horses clopping over the cobblestones, and somewhere a child laughing. He smiled as he returned to his bedside to wash his face and finish dressing. There was a distinctive knock on the door. "Come in, Pell," he said. Pelagius bounded into the room. It was obvious that he had been up for hours. Magnus marveled at his energy and wondered how much longer battles would last if they were run by 12-year-old boys. Probably not long, because they would get fucking slaughtered. "Did you see outside yet?" Pelagius asked. "All the town's people have come back. There are shops and a mage's guild, and down by the harbor, I saw 100 shops come in from all over the place. They don't have to be afraid anymore. We've taken care of all the zombies and ghosts that used to be their neighbors. Goddamn. And they know it's safe to come back." "Is Uncle Sepphoris going to turn into a zombie when he dies?" asked Pelagius. "I wouldn't put that past him," laughed Magnus. "Why do you ask?" "I heard some people saying that he was old and sick," said Pelagius. "He's not that old," said Magnus. "He's 60 years old. That ain't bad. That's just 2 years older than I." "And how old is Aunt Potema?" asked Pelagius. 70, said Magnus. "And yes, that is old. And more questions will have to wait. I have to go meet with the commander now, but we can talk at supper. You can make yourself busy and not get into any trouble." "Yes, sir," said Pelagius. He understood that his father had to continue to hold siege on Aunt Potema's castle. After they took it over and locked her up, they would move out of the inn and into the castle. Pelagius was not looking forward to that. The whole town had a funny, sweet, dead smell, but he could not even get as close as the castle moat without gagging from the stench. They could dump 1,000,000 flowers on the place and it wouldn't make any difference at all. He walked through the city for hours, buying some food and then some ribbons for his sister and mother back in Lomoth. He thought about who else he needed to buy gifts for and was stumped. All his cousins, the children of Uncle Sepphoris, Uncle Antiochus, and Aunt Potema, had died during the war. Some of them in battle and some of them during the famines because so many crops had been burned. Aunt Bianchi had died last year. Not Bianchi! There was only he, his mother, his sister, his father, and his uncle, the Emperor, left, and Aunt Potema, but she didn't really count. When he came upon the Mages Guild earlier that morning, he had decided not to go in. Those places always spooked him, with their strange smoke and crystals and old books. This time it occurred to Pelagius that he might buy a gift for Uncle Sepphoris, a souvenir of Solitude's Mages Guild. An old woman was having trouble with the front door, so Pelagius opened it for her. A genuinely old woman? How old are we talking here? About 70 years old, huh? Thank you, I don't know why I said that so dumb. Thank you, she said. She was easily the oldest thing he had ever seen. Her face looked like an old, rotted apple, framed with a wild whirl of bright white hair. He instinctively moved away from her gnarled talon when she started to pat him on the head, but there was a gem around her neck that immediately fascinated him. Was it like a red diamond kind of look? It was a single bright... Oh, okay, maybe not. It was a single bright yellow jewel, but it almost looked there was something trapped within. When the light hit it from the candles, it brought out the form of a 4-legged beast, pacing. It's a soul gem, she said, infused with the spirit of a great demon werewolf. It was enchanted long, long ago with the power to charm people. But I've been thinking about giving it another spell. Perhaps something from the School of Alteration. Ooh, skill book unlocked! Like lock or shields. She paused and looked at the boy carefully with yellowed, rheumy eyes. You look familiar to me, boy. What's your name? Pelagius, he said. He normally would have said Prince Pelagius, but he was told not to draw attention to himself while in town. I used to know someone named Pelagius, the old woman said, and slowly smiled. Are you here alone, Pelagius? My father is with the army, storming the castle. But he'll be back when the walls have been breached. Which I dare say won't take too much longer, sighed the old woman. Nothing, no matter how well built, tends to last. Are you buying something in the Mages Guild? I wanted to buy a gift for my uncle, said Pelagius, but I don't know if I have enough gold. The old woman left the boy to look over the wares while she went to the guild enchanter. He was a young Nord, ambitious, and new to the Kingdom of Solitude. It took little persuasion and a lot of gold to convince him to remove the charm spell from the soul gem and imbue it with a powerful curse, a slow poison that would drain wisdom from its wearer year by year, until he or she lost all reason. She also purchased a cheap ring of fire resistance. For your kindness to an old woman, I've bought you these, she said, giving the boy the necklace and the ring. You can give the ring to your uncle, and tell him it has been enchanted with the levitation spell, so if he ever needs to leap from high places, it will protect him. I don't know about that. The soul gem is for you. Thank you, said the boy, but this is too kind of you. Kindness has nothing to do with it, she answered, quite honestly. You see, I was in the Hall of Records at the Imperial Palace once or twice, and I read about you in the foretellings of the Elder Scrolls. You will be Emperor one day, my boy, the Emperor Pelagius Septim III, and with this soul gem to guide you, posterity will always remember you and your deeds. With those words, the old woman disappeared down an alley behind the Mages Guild. Pelagius looked after her, but he did not think to search behind a heap of stones. If he had, he would have found a tunnel under the city into the very heart of Castle Solitude. And if he... Where is that? Who's that? Whatever. And if he had found his way there, he would have found, past the shambling undead and the moldering remains of a once great grand palace, the bedroom of the Queen. In that bedroom, he would find the Wolf Queen of Solitude in repose, listening to the sounds of her castle collapsing, and he would see a toothless grin growing on her face as she breathed her last. From the pen of Inzelicus. 2nd century sage. 3rd era, 137. Potama Septim died after a month-long siege of her castle. While she lived, she had been the Wolf Queen of Solitude, daughter of the Emperor Pelagius II, wife of King Mantiarcho, aunt of the Emperor Cantera II, mother of Emperor Uriel III, and sister of the Emperors Antiochus and Sepphoris. At her death, Magnus appointed his son, Pelagius, as the titular head of Solitude, under guidance from the royal council. 3rd era, 140. The Emperor Sepphoris Septim died after falling from his horse. His brother was proclaimed the Emperor Magnus Septim. 3rd era, 141. Pelagius, King of Solitude, is recorded as occasionally eccentric in the imperial annals. He marries Catarish, Duchess of Vardenfell. 3rd era, 145. The Emperor Magnus Septim dies. His son, who will be known as Pelagius the Mad, is coronated. And goddamn, she ends up getting the last laugh in the end. Who could have thought that? God, what a fucking crazy-ass history story right there, though. That is a lot more interesting than all the stories I've read, just about real life, history. But, yeah, I feel like we gotta... Oh, geez, sorry. Sorry, I didn't mean to do that. We gotta mix it up. So, in the next episode, we're going to read 3 more books. I don't know what books we're going to read yet. They'll probably just be 3 random books. I don't know. We'll find out. But until then, thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And I hope you have a very good day. Goodbye.
Cause I don't wanna see the glow without you. Refuse to even leave my home without you. Or my brain's gonna explode without you. I don't even know how to cope without you. Cause I don't wanna see the glow without you. Refuse to even leave my home without you. Or my brain's gonna explode without you. I don't even know how to cope without you.